What we have with us today is the new Bajaj Chetak C25, the C2501 to be precise. Bajaj has a sort of convoluted naming philosophy, but 25 effectively tells you the size of the battery pack. This is a 2.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, and if you go to the other models, the 30 and the 35, 3.0 kilowatt hour battery pack and 3.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's the basics. Now, this is not just another cut price version of the existing Chetak. This is actually a brand new product. The whole chassis, the underpinnings are new. There's a reason they've made it new, because they are trying to position this scooter as something different. It is smaller than the regular Chetak, and it's also significantly lighter, and it's targeted as a more friendly sort of newbie rider scooter. Now, in 2026, maybe it's not the right thing to say female scooter, and Bajaj is not saying that, but women riders are definitely one target, but it could be anyone who's new to riding. The company also tells us that they're targeting this at someone who's looking for a second EV in their household. So what is the C25 all about? Well, they want to keep the design philosophy identifiable, but it's a completely new design. Similar sort of headlamp, but different body panels all around. The indicators have been moved to the top. The side profile is different, the rear is different, the tail section at the back with a single piece tail lamp, that's different as well. What Chetak customers love and continues here is that it's a metal body, so that's metal, this is metal. The panel up here and the mudguard are still plastic, but the large body section of the scooter is metal, so that's a nice thing. You come further back, you've got a new LCD display. It's a reverse LCD display. This is again new to the scooter. The switch gear is new to the scooter, and it's all meant to make this a more affordable product. Now, there is a new platform underneath to facilitate the smaller packaging. The wheelbase is about 100 mm shorter than the regular Chetak. It still has a floorboard mounted battery, but because it's a smaller scooter, the boot space is now smaller. The good news is that it's a really deep boot. So it's 25 liters, but it's really quite large. It will fit quite a bit of stuff. And your charging flap is out here. Now, when we showed this off in our social videos, a few people said, but hey, that means I need to keep the boot open to charge the scooter. Bajaj has thought about that. There's a little channel out here where you could route the charger's cable through and shut the boot and keep it on charge. Now, unlike the top Chetak models, this does not have an onboard charger. It's an off-board charger, which means you have to physically carry the charger around. We haven't got it with us today. But the good news is that it's a 750 watt charger. Bajaj tells us that their customers value a quick charge time, so they're giving them a powerful charger. This, they say, with the 2.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, should charge from 0 to full in about 3 hours, 40 minutes, which is really quite reasonable. All right, so that's the design. Let's talk about the chassis. Changes to the chassis also include new front suspension. It's a telescopic fork at the front, and I think they've done something very clever with the styling. You see these shrouds out here? They hide the fact that there is a rather thin fork up front and a very thin set of tires. This is just an 80 section tire. The good news is it's still a 12-inch wheel, so you get the benefits of having a slightly larger wheel, more stability. It's a really thin tire, and without these two shrouds, I think that this would have looked really skinny, but the overall design is neatly thought of. Similar effect at the back as well. They have used some nice cladding around here, around the swing arm. It's a very basic swing arm hidden in there, but all this makes it look premium, and the quality of the plastics themselves is quite nice. This doesn't look or feel cheap. The same applies to this big shroud over the wheel. The apron plastics, it's all reasonably put together, and it doesn't feel like a cheap scooter. Something else that's nice are these fold-out foot pegs. There's a little click at the end. Feels good for the price. Not outstanding quality. I mean, if you really look up close, you'll see that there are some small panel gaps out there. But by and large, for the price, I think this is a nicely made scooter. Another mechanical change we should talk about is down here. It's a hub motor. Now, the Chetak originally had a swing arm mounted motor, which meant there had to be a small transmission to get the power to the rear wheel. This is a direct hub motor. They say they've gone with a hub motor because for this power level, they didn't need the complexity and the added weight of that sort of a system. So this is peak power of 2.2 kilowatts and continuous 1.8. Doesn't really sound like a lot on paper, and they also tell us that the top speed is limited to 55 kilometers per hour. Now, I do have my reservations about that. If you live in a big city and you have a commute down one of these big fast roads like the Western Eastern Express Highway in Mumbai, where the traffic is moving quickly and it's an uneasy feeling if you can't keep pace with them. But having ridden it today in Pune, I've got to say it was pleasantly enjoyable, and that's because Bajaj has tuned the way the scooter accelerates in its low speed range quite well. So anything from 10 to 15 kilometers an hour onwards, when you accelerate, it responds well. There are two modes. Eco mode is just about usable. I mean, you have to keep it fully twisted open. The good news is that this is a really light accelerator and it's not very long travel. So you can have one clean motion and accelerate. Sport mode is good fun. There's quick response, immediate response, and it keeps pace with traffic. Gradability is also quite good. It's about 10.8 degrees, tested figure that Bajaj gives us. I went up a flyover today and was able to overtake traffic, so that was not a problem. How it's going to perform with a pillion is something I can't tell you today, unfortunately, but on its own, the performance is actually quite reasonable. I think for most people who don't have a long distance, 15-20 kilometer commute at higher speeds, this will be perfectly functional in a big city or in a tier 2, tier 3 town. So that was very nice. Also, because this is a hub-mounted motor, absolutely quiet. There's just a very slight high-frequency sort of sound from the motor. You almost won't notice it, but the whole scooter feels smooth and silent as you would want from an EV, and the Chetak C25 does that well. Now, how does it ride in terms of comfort? Well, before we get there, I must show you what it's like to sit on. As you can see, this is quite a small scooter. And if you look at some shots of me riding, I'm sure I look like a giraffe on a bicycle, especially from the back. But I kind of fit on it reasonably well. It's not bad. It's built for smaller riders. It's a 763 mm seat height. It only weighs 108 kilos, which is about 20 kilos less than the current Chetak. But I'm still not uncomfortable on this. There are other scooters that feel more cramped to me. I do have to get my knee out of the way for full lock-to-lock turns. Someone who's 5'10" and below should not have that problem. But there's good room on the floorboard. The seat is comfortable. It's not that, scooped out seat that manufacturers sometimes do to make it a lower seat, which then pushes you forward. It's a comfortable seat. What is it like for a shorter rider though? Luckily for us, Roshni is behind the camera today. She's 5'2", so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera from her. Can I have that, please? Thank you. And Roshni is going to demonstrate to you, and I'm going to attempt to control this thing. All right. There we go. So, almost flat foot. Yeah. Wow, I have no idea how this works. Let's get that. Yeah, pretty much flat foot. And as you can see, Roshni is 5'2", and that's a wildly out of control camera. But she's happy, and I'm going to very happily give this back to her. Here you go. Okay, I'm glad the camera's back in your hands, Roshni, but now we can also show you what it's like for two fairly large individuals seated together. Kuldeep, can you come in here? Kuldeep is shooting our photographs, and this is what it's like for him to sit behind me. All right. Yeah, so it's not horribly tight. He says that he could use a little bit more room.
Little bit.
But the grab handle is also giving you support.
They are giving him a little bit support, so
okay.
It's not too
so
cramped.
Again, it's usable, but it's not great for large riders, but it is usable and it is nice for small riders. Right, so now let's get back to how this scooter rides. Suspension comfort is pretty good actually. The rear particularly feels nice and controlled over bad roads. The front suspension feels a little bit soft. I feel like Bajaj may have done this to, considering the fact that riders who will be on the scooter are generally smaller and lighter riders. I am not a very heavy rider, about 75-80 kilos in gear, but I felt that over bigger bumps, the front feels a little soft and it tends to thud. And if you are, let's say, braking towards a speed breaker and there are multiple bumps in the road, you'll get a series of thuds coming off the front. It's not terrible, but it also tells you that you kind of do need to watch out for bumps. Now in Pune, we were riding over some newly made roads that had massive manholes, one after the other, about 1 inch thick, and the scooter really thuds through it. Now that should be an extreme case scenario, but unfortunately we have nonsense like this across our roads far too often. So you do need to keep in mind that it's a little harsh on the front end. Rear is comfortable and overall comfort is quite decent for a scooter, but maybe not the best. When it comes to handling, the scooter feels very light and nimble, but it's not nervous and it doesn't feel like it wants to lean over too quickly because of those skinny tires. In fact, grip levels were quite good, and while fatter tires would have definitely looked nicer, I can't fault these ones for the way they perform. As for braking, this scooter has a disc brake as standard. I'm really happy to see Bajaj provide that, especially at this price point. This is the 2501 model, so it's likely to be the top model in the 25 range. There may be 2502, 2503, as they've done with the 35 models, and they may not have a disc brake and a few other features. But what I understand is that this 2.5 kilowatt hour battery pack is the largest that they can fit into this new chassis. So if there are future variants, they may come with a smaller battery, but they won't be coming with a bigger battery. For that, you will need to go to the higher Chetak models. As for range, Bajaj claims a certified range of 113 kilometers, and they say that you should get about 90 kilometers of realistic riding. Now, today we have consumed, we've got about 66% of the battery left, and it says we have 60 kilometers of range left. Says that we should be on track with Bajaj's claim of about 90 kilometers, but we'd rather get it back home, fully test it, and then let you know what that's all about. And on that note, let's talk about features and price tag. It's reasonably well equipped. It's not got things like a TFT and things like that, but I think it gives you what you need. There's a simple a range indicator. You have 2 riding modes. You've got hill hold, you've got Bluetooth connectivity, which allows you to control your music and accept and reject calls, but there's no turn-by-turn navigation here. The switchgear is interesting. It's got D, N, R, and M. M is for switching between the modes on the screen. D is drive, as you would imagine. R is reverse, as you'd imagine. N is a neutral, which I think is an interesting feature. So if you come to a traffic light, you just hit neutral, and this basically will not work. Now, whether we like it or not, in India, it's a common thing to have a young child sitting up front on the floorboard. And sometimes at a traffic light, if that child yanks this open, it could be a dangerous situation, especially if they don't let go. Putting it into neutral is just a safeguard against that. And when you want to ride away, you could just press the brake, press D, go away. And I think that's a nice, small, thoughtful feature. Another thing I like is that there is a little brake lock for the brake lever. Small thing, nice to have. Now, the price is 91,400 rupees, which is fantastic. It undercuts the iQube 2.2 by quite a bit. It's a little lower than the Vida VX2 Go, which has a similarly sized battery pack. But you have to pay an additional 3,000 rupees for what Bajaj calls the tech pack. Thankfully, this is a one-time purchase, so you just buy it once outright, but I think you should, because the tech pack gives you those Bluetooth features I talked about. It gives you the hill hold, and most importantly, it gives you sport mode. So if you don't buy the tech pack, your top speed will be 45 kilometers an hour, and that I think is too slow. So consider the price of the scooter to be more like 94,000 rupees 300, and I think that's still really good value for money. It's a small, simple, cheap, but also quite cheerful scooter, and it's quite an enjoyable thing, which will be quite usable for most people as long as they don't have very high-speed commutes. Overall, I think this is a great addition to the Chetak family. It brings in new people, and it's going to help the Chetak portfolio sell in greater numbers and maybe even take back that #1 position from TVS, unless TVS has something interesting to offer to counter this. This is my top speed.
Yeah? Fast enough.